step forward.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of...
You're listening to the Then and Now podcast.
Should have edited that differently, but it is what it is. I am your co-host, C Diesel, Captain Diesel, and I have with me today my lovely co-host, Professor E, King of the Comics, Ethan Murphy, and Lelouch V, OG Big Blurred, Stank Meaner. How y'all doing today, brothers?
I was going fine, I guess, until I got slandered.
Slander?
Yeah, slander.
Is it inaccurate, though?
Yes, very.
Oh. Okay.
Haven't I given the highest reviews for the last couple of terrible things that we watched?
Highest? I don't know. I don't know if I've ever seen you give the highest.
Rebel
reviews.
Moon, I definitely had the highest review for that. For sure.
What was what was your review of highest?
I gave it a 5. Y'all gave it a 2 and a 3.
Three reviews out of the 300 videos we have on the channel is crazy.
I mean, it's a lot of stuff that I've praised highly that y'all thought was okay. But I mean, if you want to continue trying to push that narrative, I guess do what you got to do.
But let's see how it goes today. Let's see. I mean, I already know how it's gonna go today. So
I know for sure I've put both of y'all onto new shows too. On top of that, so I can't hate everything, obviously. But
you also put me on the shows that aren't finished, so that was torture. So I will. I'll deduct 2 points from Gryffindor.
Gangsta and Dead Man Wonderland are great shows, though.
Yeah, yeah, they are. They are. That's the.
It was an encouragement.
We're off the races already. We're off the races already.
Read the manga.
Speaking of content that we reviewed, we're going to be getting into some stuff today.
I try,
man. I try. A recent show that's recently released, that of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, kind of a spin-off, for lack of better terms, of the original movie that was put out that started, was it Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie? Brad Pitt, right? Okay. I feel racist sometimes. I get my white men actors confused. I get him and Tom Cruise confused a lot sometimes.
Brad Pitt and Tom, that's disrespectful.
Hey, I haven't seen too many movies they've been in, so when I see him and stuff, I'm just like, oh, okay, so that's not him. Okay, cool.
Well, Mr. and Mrs. Smith was kind of famous because it it ended the marriages that Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie were in before, and it put them together. So it wasn't just like a wham bam. It's a kind of a bigger deal overall outside of the movie itself.
It started what were they called together?
Brangelina.
Yeah.
I remember.
And they had 7 kids and
all that
stuff.
So
all of them.
Hopefully, this film or this show does not cause the same issues. I don't know if Donald or Maya Erskine, is it Erskine? How you pronounce her last name?
I think it's pronounced Erskine. Right?
Erskine. I hope they aren't in happy marriages that get torn up as it is.
I mean, I know Bino is married, if I'm not mistaken.
I thought he was.
I have no idea about her background.
But yeah, the show again is based off. It's kind of a spinoff of that. I was interested when this got announced of how they were going to take it, because the first one didn't really leave a lore-rich world, I guess, to kind of spin off of. But because Donald was going to be a big part of the producing it, and I think he had something to do with the writing credits. I can look that up for sure in a second when we're talking about it. Okay, so I was interested.
Just watching the credits, he wrote some episodes or helped write out some episodes, and he
actually
directed
him and his brother. They wrote
So yeah, I'm always interested to see what he has coming out with Swarm being one of the last things he worked. I think the most recent thing he worked on. So I think he does good work. But this show in general is essentially kind of a similar vein of the first movie, where you have these two. They're not secret agents to start with in this series. They're kind of just people with a set of skills, I guess we'll say, for lack of a better term, to not spoil too much stuff. And they're together and undergo missions together. And
wait, you're saying for this series that they're not spies from the start?
Yeah, they weren't.
They weren't from the start.
In this series, they worked for an organization from the start.
Yeah, they signed up for the organization.
Yeah, in the first episode, they worked for the organization. Yeah.
They
worked
for
the right series. The same.
Yeah, I'm talking about the right one. Yeah.
Okay.
They didn't. Yeah, they didn't have any prior experience or knowledge of the organization before they applied for it.
Right. Okay. I got you.
So
yeah,
that's all I'll say.
The movie, the movie.
I think that's enough you'll get from the trailers.
Both in separate spy agencies, but somehow not aware of it, even though they were living together, which made a whole lot less sense.
The movie, if you think about it, it's the movie doesn't quite track when you try to place any actual logic. I mean, it's who cares? The movie, but
They're
yeah,
pretty
it's
bad
a
at being
weird bunch of
spies, to
coincidences.
be honest with you, not gonna lie to you.
Yeah.
You don't notice a whole hidden gun rack in your house, like in multiple places. But that's hold on.
For years.
Getting back to the series,
but
for
get back to
years.
this series though. Yeah.
But yeah, this one I enjoyed it. I'm on like episode, like I said before, I'm on episode 7. I'm like halfway through the second to last episode. I've enjoyed it so far. I think for a general overview of how I felt about the series, I think this is not what I was expecting when I initially first watched it. It seems to be a lot more focused on relationship building, I guess, for lack of a better term. Like, you have your spy action and spy drama in there mixed in, but it seems a lot more focused on like two strangers building a relationship and how that works out in the particular set of circumstances. For me, this, I don't know, maybe different for y'all, but I can't imagine too many other pieces of content that has more realistic like dialogue between people in a relationship. To me, if I feel like these conversations are conversations that I may have had in like prior relationships or situations or whatever it may be. Everything felt really organic for me. I don't know if it was just the chemistry between the two, how tight the script was particularly, but that was me, how I felt about the show in general from a production and a kind of an acting standpoint at one. How did y'all feel about it in general on that standpoint?
Yeah, I'm actually more in line with you. I actually felt like it was similar. The biggest highlight of the show for me was the actual relationship between the two leads. And I'm sure they was, because for those who don't know, to my understanding, you think you said this to me before, Charlie. Maya is the person who voiced Miso in Blue Eye Samurai, correct?
I believe so. I will double check.
James Smith she's the person who voiced Miso and Blue Eye Samurai, and I hadn't before that. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. So before that, I'm not sure who told me that then. It wasn't you. But anyways, before that, I hadn't. She wasn't on my radar at all. I didn't know anything about her. I don't think I'd seen her in anything. And she's with the two shows. She's 2 for 2 in my opinion. Her acting, her performance is like out of this world. And in each episode, she shows like almost a little bit something different she can do that I didn't expect to see. And her chemistry, like I said, her chemistry with Donald Glover is what sells this show. No offense to the movie with Brangelina, but that's pretty much just two celebrities being celebrities. This feels very much like two real characters that are very much real flawed people trying to make a relationship work despite all kinds of bananas circumstances. So I'm actually a really big fan of this show. I actually really enjoyed it a lot. I was trying to watch it with the lady I'm seeing, who has weird taste in stuff. Like she's like, I love Superstore. It's like, ooh, Superstore. But yeah, so I really, really enjoyed it.
The look at concern on Otis's face is crazy when you said that.
Superstore.
That show had 5 seasons. It had like 5 viewers, but yeah.
Hey, I mean, people like fairy tales. So, I mean, whatever folks is bold.
Too much, man.
I have mixed feelings about this. To a degree, like I mean, the chemistry between the two main characters in the cast was fantastic. I think that was the carry of the entire series because I don't think it was the plot. The plot was okay. The comedy honestly outshined everything. I think that the way that he slipped the meta humor into some intense situations was honestly masterful. This ended up. I think the issue here, because I came into this thinking this would be more like of a spy thriller, type thing, and it ended up being more of a dramedy. So I mean, a little bit of mix of expectations there. And I think the trailer kind of facilitated that to a degree. It was like it made it seem like it was going to be a lot more actiony. I mean, I don't think that this was like bad action wise, but this was definitely more so focused on the relationship between the two characters than any type of action aspect of it, which is fine.
Right.
But I do think that was a little slightly misleading, so that's a slight mark for me. But the actual what we got on screen, I thought was pretty, for lack of a better word, I say authentic, just because
That's a good word.
the situations that they got into, the dialogue between the two characters made a lot of sense. Those are two character tropes, for lack of a better word, that I've seen in real people pretty often. So felt very relatable. Bino, his character John Smith, made a lot of sense through most of that to me. But I mean, I think that Jane also had her pretty strong portrayal as well. Yeah, the roller coaster ride that you go through with their relationship seems very very real to me as well. So I think they did a good job there. Um, I did want this to be a tad more suspenseful though. Like I wanted some type of thriller aspect to it or some tension there. They didn't necessarily hold that as much. But on the comedic side, I mean, it was gold. Like one episode that really got me the most is when they went to see the couples therapist.
And Sarah Paulson. Shout out to Sarah Paulson.
Oh my god, the dialogue that they had after every session was perfect.
It's basically Atlanta. That was the most like Atlanta.
It
Pretty
was.
much.
That was an Atlanta episode.
Yeah,
that was
Atlanta.
But this whole show felt like Atlanta if they were spies, right?
It was
like,
clear. That was how I felt too.
Like,
That's why I wasn't surprised. I was like, this is based. I expected to see Atlanta with Donald Glover as a spy. That's what I thought.
Yeah, and honestly, like it is a very familiar feel that you see in these Bino productions. I mean, in the episodes for Community he wrote way back in the day, it had a similar feel all the way, up to more recently with Swarm. I think that contextually felt kind of close to Atlanta, and you can just kind of see the mark that he's creating in his content, which is not a bad thing. It makes it feel familiar because I think Jordan Peele kind of does a similar thing where all his movies have a similar, well, not movies, just movies, but all his pieces of content kind of have a similar feel to each other.
Yeah.
So I think developing like a brand statement like that is pretty solid. But if you're going to take on a project like this one particularly, not because like the original one is like some type of high level spectacle, but it is an action movie, you got to give some type of that in there to me.
So
I'm not
on that. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dev. You have some say.
No, I'm saying go ahead. See your thing. My bad.
So what I was gonna say is I feel like this was a better version of the actual movie. The real life. Wow, am I doing? The actual movie, the full blown production, in theater film with Brangelina. That one didn't quite hit the logic notes as far as how they're together. You didn't quite understand why they're staying together. Yada yada, and so forth. This was almost like a prequel showing like if these two people were linked up together to be spies together, as opposed to spy versus spy, was spy and spy, how would that play out? That was the plot for me from the start. It was just like being like the actual scene behind the scenes of what it like to be like to living as a spy with another spy. And as things went on, seeing how they of course do inevitably, spoiler alerts, and on some level you would fall in love with that person and then fall out of love with that person, then fall back in love with that person. You have all kinds of emotion being involved with it. It's anytime you have stress on that high of a level in a job, in a daily job, it's going to affect things overwhelmingly so. In this show, that's the whole point of this show, is showing you how people get affected by stress one way or the other. And I thought that did a really good job with that. And you mentioned like the comedy. The comedy was great. It's not always laugh out loud comedy, but some parts are very much like that was very well done, very clever. There's a weird little joke that happens in the 7th episode that Charlie's watching right now, where they go to a bodega or something, but it's like a kosher deli. And he goes, "Do you think it's how do you think they get it kosher? Do they have like the beef jerky get blessed or something?" It's like little jokes that they do, and they're both very deadpan with what they say and how they say it. So it's a very very fun show to watch. But at the same time, every time there's another part, and I won't get into it again in the final episode, the finale, where Donald Glover is going through this shit, and everything he's going through, just watching him be a scared black man running. It's just I was on the floor. I was laughing so hard. I had to pause the show half the time because I was laughing too hard at it. So it's just it was a very enjoyable ride for me, just watching that, go out.
Yeah. To speak on the expectation aspect, I kind of felt Otis's sentiments originally as far as like what I expected, because again, it's Mr. and Mrs. Smith. You think the action, the spy thriller, but this is kind of what because we've spoken on like remakes and requels a couple times on the show, and to the similar sentiments I've had for those, this is something that I kind of look for in something like this, to where you're taking something familiar as far as like the spy relationship stuff that you would get from the first movie, but you're focusing on something different to put your own creative spin on it. And in this one, obviously, they took away from a lot of the action and focused on the relationship dynamic that I felt like was kind of lacking from the original movie, where it was like, oh, we're both attractive, we have sex, we bond over violence and our whatever history we have that we allude to, not really show. Let's do that. This one is a lot more, okay, we're going to see how this relationship is formed from the beginning in every single relationship dynamic or struggle they have. One of the things that I thought was really, really, really important, that was interesting, is that that Gambino, probably being in one himself, put a lot of attention on the writing of the interracial relationship dynamics and like the differences that they have in one. In the episode 6, I believe, there was kind of a thing to where you saw Gambino interacting with other black men, and he, at least from his perspective, he thought that that was something that made his wife feel uncomfortable because it was something that she couldn't do. And as somebody, like, I have one of my best friends is in a relationship, and I know him and his wife very well, and that's something that they, like, I've heard them talk about with me before, is like, when you're in relationships like that, there's certain cultural dynamics that you just don't understand, and for that to be like a piece that it was just so detailed and relatable. I feel like a lot of people, especially a lot of couples, can relate to this. I myself am single, so I can't speak to others. I think, Otis, you're in a black woman too, so it may not be. I don't know if you've ever dated somebody outside of your race beforehand, but maybe y'all both can relate to that. But I feel like a lot of people can, and not even just in that, but when it comes to relatability, the conversations that a lot of these people have, not even just the stars, but like some of the other people around, like you just see them have conversations that just, again, it feels like I could walk outside and hear somebody talk like this.
Yeah.
Now, some of the more extreme stuff, obviously not, but it just, the interactions feel so genuine and relatable. I think if I had to give one word for the show, it'd be relatable. I feel like you can relate to it so much.
Yeah, those are two good things. So Otis mentioned authentic. Charlie mentioned relatable. I forgot what my one word would be, but yeah, I think that's really, you hit the nail on the head there too, as far as dealing with the idea that A, they are interracial, and B, they are meant to be specifically almost like polar opposites, to be complementary with each other. It's not a spoiler either that the algorithm or whatnot figures these two out as far as it deliberately pairs them with each other from the jump to make sure they actually are they're designed to handle missions together based off of their past and everything else. So it's a good character study in that regard. And I really, as a writer, from a writing standpoint, you'll find more about this later on, Charlie, when you get to the actual finale. This is a show that's a really, really good job of plants and payoffs. Anyone who knows me knows I talk about that ad nauseum. Otis has told me to shut up multiple times about plants and payoffs. I get it. I know I badger on about it, but it's the final episode. Correct me if I'm wrong, Charlie. Otis, correct me if I'm wrong, but the final episode, like so many things from the entire past 7 episodes come back in that final episode in a very interesting way, and it pays it off, which means that when they were making this show, they weren't just putting a whole bunch of crap in there for nothing. It actually was like, here, this actually does matter. It actually is pertinent, and I really enjoyed that. I really enjoy seeing writing that makes sense, that pays off, that actually has some kind of relevance. So from my standpoint, my word that I would say to use as far as overall, I would say it's a well-crafted. That's how I put it. Authentic, relatable, and I'd say well-crafted.
Yeah, I don't think I could disagree with that, especially with going back to Ethan's point. I agree with that 100%. That's why before we started going, I said that the last episode is the one that matters, because that's the one that ties together everything previously. It's almost like, I mean, I wouldn't say it's almost like everything else before didn't matter, but nothing was resolved until you got to that final piece. You know what I'm saying?
It's a culmination.
Yeah, I think they did a great job of like having Easter eggs throughout the series that really came to a head in moments in the last episode, and especially the moment where they did finally build up tension is the final moment of the entire show. So I mean, I guess we still have to see exactly how that winds up. But,
right.
No, overall, I think they did a pretty solid job. I think that with the only somewhat knock is the fact that it is a little of subversion of genres there. Like you go from action comedy, spy thriller to a dramedy with hints of action. You know what I'm saying? But this is a dramedy. Like this is the dynamic between two people in a comedic environment that just so happens to be a spy lifestyle that they live.
Yeah, it's inside a comedic environment. It's almost a slice of life, which I know you're not a fan of that genre, but it's pretty much you're seeing a couple, like episode 6, as Charlie's in, or we talked about before, where they go to the therapist. It very much shows like, yeah, this is a couple dealing with couples problems, dealing with work problems. However, their job is just different. It feels much more like the first movie is closer to like a more stereotypical James Bond flick, and this one is much more closer to a Jason Bourne flick, because there is action in it. But when the action pops off, it's more grounded in a weird, like, almost feels too real, like unsettling. There's a part where they're running through the streets of Italy with Ron Perlman, and they're like, it is like, it feels like this is, you can see the people reacting to it, like this is almost unsettling what's happening here. Like seeing people like get shot in, it's like this isn't supposed to be happening. What's going on here? The action almost seems out of place, like you're saying. It's not really about that. But I feel like when it does happen, it pops off really nice. It's almost like it's meant to be a slow, because it's subversion, like a slow burn. Like, by the way, surprise. We also, the pilot episode, the first episode, I was stunned the way that first episode ends, where everything seems nice and mundane. There's walking out, and all of a sudden, oh, by the way, kablam! It's like, what? So it's because of how they set it up so much, it worked that much more. It paid off that much better, in my opinion.
I'm not gonna lie, I was relatively bored up until that moment of the show, where I was like, I got kind of the Otis point. I was just like, all right, this isn't what I thought it was gonna be. I'm gonna tough it through those, and I have to review it on the show at some point. And then that moment happened. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. I want to see how they go through this.
Yeah. I think that was somewhat deliberate. I think it's also, in a sense, it's supposed to be, from their point of view, their perspective, in the day in the life of the spies. You don't know when something's going to pop off. You don't know if someone's going to be. Then they're called high risk. That's the level they're set as, high risk. But you never know what the mission will be. So it's meant to be similar to that. Make the audience feel what they're feeling on some level, I guess.
To your point on that specific moment in Italy, I wanted to get on to a little bit more and expound upon your show don't tell point from earlier. Thing that I love that they speak on it in the 6th episode in regards to the Jane's development as a quote unquote spy. But you see it where in the first episode, it seemed like John Gambino's character obviously had a little bit more experience. I think they alluded to him having military experience, in just being, I guess, tactically trained, for lack of a better term. And you pop off in that episode, you see them like taking out head doming dudes from like hundreds of feet away. They seem a little bit more comfortable in their roles now. I don't know how big of a time jump that is. I assume it's like a year, maybe a couple years, because they kind of discuss past things in that episode. But the growth, they're like the ability to show like them developing as spies early on or throughout the show without having to just outright say it, or like them talk about all kinds of crazy kills they may have gotten. I thought that was something dope to show, just to give more evidence to your point as far as the show don't tell stuff. But really quickly, I wanted to get into, because we spoke on it earlier in regards to the developmental familiarity that we have with a lot of Gambino stuff and a lot of directors have. I kind of wanted to expound upon the different things that he particularly does in projects that he's directing or writing or acting in, that he has a lot of creative control over, that makes his stuff special. And one thing for me in particular happened to be like this ethereal feel that he has in a lot of his stuff, from Atlanta to Swarm to this. Usually it's like some kind of like weird music that's like sort of a string instrument that's being like drawn out in one smooth stroke almost, that's meant to like, and you almost don't notice it until they cut a shot or something where you're like, oh, there's this weird music going on that kind of like settles you, but also makes you feel like unease a little bit, partially. And it's something I see consistently with all his stuff. It's almost like a fever dream for a lot of his productions. And I find that interesting. And he's had that for the horror genre in horror with Swarm, and then even in this, I think, like you guys said, this is more akin to Atlanta. I'm starting to enjoy that. To your point, and I like what I get from him in that aspect.
The episode,
it's called Afro Surrealism.
Afro-surrealism. Yeah. The episode I think of from Atlanta that kind of that heralds that point really hard is there's an episode where like Keith Stanfield goes to like Michael Jackson's like house to move a piano or something. And it kind of seems, I know what you mean, because especially with this, one of the runners, one of the jokes that happens in this show is that every house they go into, they're always like, it's a very nice place, or it's a really nice place. They always mention it's a really nice place, almost pointing out the fact that these places they're going to are like bizarrely exotic for this random show. And it has a kind of that same kind of over the top feel every time. So yeah, I know what you mean, Charlie. I feel you in that regard.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the Afro surrealism is a constant thing in stuff that he does. Also, the way that he uses meta humor, like it's almost like he does like a commentary on the sequence of events immediately after they happen, which is kind of what you would do in real life. It's like, yo, did you see that? Like, I think it adds a level of immersion when even the characters are taken aback by some of the wild things that go on the camera.
Right. It oftentimes with the wild things that was happening, both the main characters, most of these two actors are very good at hiding, kind of being deadpan with it, and then later on, like you said, they'll react to it, and that's part of what makes them so endears them to each other and endears them to us, or endears us to them, is having as their interactions about things, or them talking about something after the fact, like with the therapist's office, talking about it, or there's a part where later on where one of the characters like basically uses a catchphrase as they kill somebody, and the other one's like laughing about it. And like, did you just use a catchphrase, or who's that for? So it's like all that kind of it's a bizarrely like fun or unique setting for it too.
So can we talk on that specifically? What you just said, because
sure,
you said that that's something that you found endearing to them. I didn't like them as a couple until the last episode. I thought that they actually were like very not complimentary at all. Like at all until like that last moment that I'm talking about.
I know, of course. I think I'm more endeared to them individually than them as a couple. To the point where it's like, yeah, we know we have to see them as a couple, but they don't belong together in that sense. However, it's I feel like every moment's earned, so that's why it's like, yeah, we have to at least go through the motions of them being together to see. Yeah, but I know what you're saying.
I think that's part of the relatability to me, and maybe you guys have different experiences. I know with me, I've seen at least a lot of the older Black couple relationships. I've seen my grandparents being an example. It always seems like those two are like polar opposites of one another, but they find things about the other person they love and that they like, and that's the reason they're together for so long. And again, I've seen it a lot where it's like, okay, we don't really get along on a fundamental level, but there are certain things about each other they like. And they speak on it in one of the episodes where I think it was when you started to see cracks in the relationship, where she was like, oh, I enjoyed how nice you were. I love that about you. Because he was being kind of like an asshole in the moment. Or even from because they kind of discussed that. And then, I don't know. I feel like that was really organic to me, because at least to relationships that I've been in or that I've witnessed that last a long time, not all of them happen to be people that like fit together as like a perfect puzzle piece. That's why I feel like this is like, I feel like a lot of people are either in this kind of relationship or have been in the past, to where, okay, we don't know why we're together, but it fits and it works somehow because we work on it constantly. Now, is that the healthiest relationship to have? I cannot attest to that. Because sometimes people just enjoy being together because of all kinds of reasons, whether it be comfortability, just having nostalgia, whatever it may be. But I've seen a lot of those.
Yeah, same, fair. And I think maybe endear in that sense, maybe the wrong word. More, it's like you said again, relatability. It's recognizability. You recognize this very much. So yeah, this. I'm sure lots of people who saw this were like, yeah, I can 100% relate to what it's like to be like the male or the woman in this kind of relationship, where you feel like your partner is just an idiot or won't do the right thing, or you feel like your other partner is way too controlling, yet you're still there with them. If for whatever reason you're trying to be with them more and more, and also here's one thing you have to understand too: emotions are over here, logic is over here. So even though you may say on paper we should not be together, for the reason it still works for you, or you still want that person. And this show, to the nth degree, shows that in multiple occasions. One thing I want to bring up too, real quick, is that the show, again, talking about the plans and payoffs, the show opens with the couple you would usually have as the actual leads in a show. They look very much like a Brangelina stand-in at the beginning. They get off right. They get off right away. So it's almost like they're almost, again, they're kind of subverting that trope right off the bat in a way too. So it's meant to show you that real relationships and real trying to mix business and pleasure is always going to be messy, and that's kind of the point of this show.
think a lot of couples like looked at it and it was that Leo meme from the Tarantino movie. It's like right there.
Yeah,
I see
yeah,
it. It's
yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah. Exactly,
Like,
exactly. That's probably the perfect meme
mhm.
for this show. Yeah.
One thing this show really just made me want to see Donald and James Gunn work together. I'm not gonna lie to you because I feel like their comedy and humor is like really similar. I'm like, damn, I want to see these two working on a project together. Rather that's acting in something or them working together creatively to write something. I don't know. I feel like that'd be some heat for me personally. I'm like, damn, that I feel like that would be amazing.
When it comes to the relationship, honestly, it was borderline traumatic watching it just because it reminded me of so many previous relationships that I had. It was just like, oh, this is what that looked like from the outside. So I mean, I guess that added to the relatability aspect to it, but also it added to the why I wasn't rooting for them together because it was like I know how this ends. Like I've seen this end. I ended it.
Right.
Just let it go. Let it go.
I ended it. Right. But again, that's why I liked it so much because, like you're saying, relatability or verisimilitude. You can get fancy with these college words, but it's like, yeah, these are real people. The thing is, there's a couple of parts, a couple of heated moments. I think you probably seen it. Yeah, you saw it in the episode 6 where they're like camping and whatnot, and he's like laying into her, and it's a and she ends this. It's a
and
massive.
She asked for it. She walked into
she
that
wanted.
session.
She was begging for the heat.
Man.
Fair enough. She wanted that smoke in her mouth. But the thing is, he goes into her, and then she says, she ends it by somebody saying, "Who is your emergency contact?" And he says, "My mom." And she says, "Mine is you." So no matter how much we hate each other, I still am in love with you, essentially. And it's showing that he's still not quite there yet. So it's the little things that are like, yeah, these are very much, it's very, very real. And this, again, the acting, I don't care who you are, what you're doing, the acting in this show I was just like, it's the last 2 episodes especially. It's like, good Lord. There's a part where, I think you've already seen it by now, Charlie, where Jane or Mrs. Smith is in a room talking to a character about John. And during mid conversation, she pretty much like, while she seems very angry.
I haven't seen that yet.
Okay, all right then. I'll stop right there. Yeah. But it's just, again, they're selling the relationship so hard. That's kind of all that matters. Everything else is just set dressing. All the action, set dressing. The big houses, set dressing. The ethereal stuff, set dressing. It's just their relationship. The show is called Mr. and Mrs. Smith for a reason, in my opinion.
Shout out to Michaela Cole for her role there. But
yes, that's what I'm talking. You know what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Obviously, yeah. But of course, it's Michaela Cole. She's always there's no half stepping with. I mean, I'll watch it again just for that one. Yeah, but.
I guess to kind of speak on that a little bit more, like that camping scene you were talking about. I loved how they set that up early on as far as like his boundary or like the importance of his mother to him, and that was like a big motivation for him. Which I feel like part of it's a little bit of a cultural thing, at least personally for me, where I'm not going to speak for all Black men. I know for me, not having my biological father around, or like my mother being by herself for a lot. When you grew up, you have that sense of responsibility. And when she they show you where his boundary is when it comes to that early on, where he's like, all right, hey, I'm keeping you and my mother separate. And when she crossed that boundary, you saw that switch hit in him. And the rant that he goes on, like you said before, is so like, oh, I'm like, was he acting just then? Because it sounded like he was like talking to somebody else, but talking to her at the same time. If that makes any sense. Like he had had that shit pent up for a minute. He was writing to experience. But like maybe his wife saw that and she was like, okay, you want to talk about something? Because it was like, it was again so authentic the way he went through that. And I was just like, damn, that was probably like one of the, I haven't seen the last episode yet, so I can't say to that. But for me,
we're gonna watch it together. We're gonna watch it together as a family. Yeah,
that was one of the highlight moments of the series to me. Was like that build up to that rant and then that interaction. I think episode 6 is my favorite episode. I'm not gonna lie, the therapy episode, because you saw a lot of details in their relationship dynamic that had been like hinted at prior to that.
So, yeah.
So yeah, all that being said, you guys want to go ahead and start ranking? Rank the series, I guess. Not rank it because we can rank it in our ranking video. We do
rating.
8 out of 10.
Yeah, you said an 8.
I give it a solid 9. Again, I get it. The pacing is meant to be deliberately slow, but it's just from what I like. I give it a solid 9. It is what it is. I give it a 9.
I gave it a 9 as well. It's so tight. Like the writing, like, pause. The writing for it was so tight.
There's no reason.
From minute things like you guys say, like coming back around. I haven't gotten to the final episode yet, but throughout the show, they take a lot of the smaller details and bring them back around. Those smaller details are big development pieces for each of the characters. And the humor, like you guys said, this brought me over the top to where I genuinely was entertained. This shows a really big change of pace for me out of everything I was watching before that was super action-y oriented or just anime in general. So this just felt like a really good change of pace for me to watch something different than what I had been like binging beforehand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you. And it's nice that the thing was too. This has got to be the first original Amazon show where they released the entire show at once, right?
Yeah, that's surprising.
Usually they pace like a few episodes at a time. Am I correct or am I off base?
No, you're usually right. They usually release them spread out over a set of time. This one was out all at once. Swarm was the same way though.
Did they release all Swarm at once? Okay.
If I remember right, during our Swarm review, I read that he was working on this, like they worked on these things back to back. Like him he has like Gambino. I gotta look up her name, but he has like a creative director or like a person that works on him for the majority of his projects, a woman. I don't know if she's wife or not. Yeah. So like they were working on this like back to back. So that may be why they're so similar in nature, honestly.
But do you know why that Amazon did release this all at once? Francesca Sloan. Do you know why Amazon did release this particular series all at once, or was there any reason?
Yeah, I don't know why they did this one particularly all at once. I do think that it was better this way because if it came out weekly, I think I might have slowly lost attention for it until we got to probably like episode 6.
Honestly,
yeah. The only reason why I can't give this a higher score is because, like, there was no moment that really felt like life-threatening until the very end of the show. And with it being a show where their lives are on the line all the time, like it felt more like their relationship was on the line than their lives for a lot of it. So that's the only detriment that I have.
Because like early on things were too convenient, or then by the end it was like they were too good at their job. So it's like there's no immediate danger.
Because one last thing before we go, there's something that you brought up before, Charlie, that's really important, was we're not knowing exactly how much time is passing from the time they are hired officially into this agency to the time the end of the series. I don't know. They reference as something at one point they reference like 5 months have passed to certain things, and so it's I imagine it's probably about a year. It's like their rookie year together, roughly. I'm not sure into it, so
possibly. Well, we ranked it, y'all. Again, in the comments section below or wherever if you're listening to this on audio platforms, find us on our socials and kind of let us know what you thought about the series. I'm excited for a second season. I'm assuming it's going to get a second season. I haven't seen the 8th episode, so I'm not sure if they're like setting up for that or not in that finale for that. But again, let us know what you think in the comments and follow us on social medias. If you have any other upcoming projects or projects that are currently out that you would like us to kind of take a look at, let us know. Closed mouths don't get fed around here. And again, we have some upcoming stuff we're going to be working on. Again, we're going to be continuing our Baldur's Gate 3 playthrough of that. That's been something we've had fun doing. So we're going to continue that. If something like drastically crazy releases, or probably Deadpool 3, we could probably do that live. If you guys want to record, review that live, I think that's like a big enough release possibly.
And y'all playing the Suicide Squad game now too. So.
Yeah, I've been playing that off and on. That honestly, that may be something that I play a lot more like off stream, so I can like enjoy it fully. Because sometimes playing stuff on stream, I feel like I'm not enjoying it to the fullest. So that may be the one.
That'd be a fun conversation to have. That fandom is that'd be a fun conversation to have.
Yeah. And we can, if you guys want to discuss that game and it's in like at least a story in its totality, like after we finish beating it or put enough time into it, we can discuss that on the stream as well or on the podcast as well. But yeah, that's everything I have. Again, you can follow us on every platform that is available. We're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We're pretty much on every audio platform except like Stitcher. Well, we may be on Stitcher. I don't know if anybody ever still uses Stitcher at all. But we're on pretty much everything. So you can find us everywhere in the Then and Now podcast. And
the side note, if you ever have to push somebody off of a building, don't say die, motherfucker, first. Just avoid that.
It's fun though, man.
All that it worked. Also, if you had to push somebody off a ability that you want to survive, make sure you check his pants because it may be an older gentleman and he will pee himself. So.
Oh God. Oh God. Okay, guys. This has been Captain Diesel, Lelouch V, and Professor E. King of the Comics, and
You're listening to the Then and Now podcast.
we'll see you guys later. Peace.